Chapter 10 Camping. Because therapy is expensive. The open air, sensory shift, social bonding, and the 3-day effect. Key terms to know. Attention restoration theory, ART, proposed by Rachel Kaplan and Stephen Kaplan, explains how natural environments restore depleted attention. Soft fascination, effortless attention drawn by natural stimuli. Default mode network DMN, brain network linked to reflection, mind wandering, and internal thought. Parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for rest, recovery, and relaxation. 3-day effect, measurable cognitive and emotional changes after 3 days in nature. Sensory perceptual recalibration, increased sensitivity and awareness of environmental stimuli. Theta waves, brainwave patterns associated with working memory and cognitive control. Social cohesion, strength of interpersonal bonds within a group. Questions to consider while reading. How does extended time in nature change perception and attention? What physiological systems shift during wilderness immersion? Why do social bonds intensify in natural, technology-free settings? What exactly happens in the brain during the 3-day effect? How do modern findings align with earlier observations by naturalists? A gradual awakening of the senses. Spend enough time outdoors and something peculiar happens. The world becomes detailed. Not in a poetic sense, but in a way that feels almost suspicious, as if someone quietly increased the resolution of reality while you were not looking. In field courses led by David Strayer, participants begin to notice subtle textures in rock formations, slight shifts in color across canyon walls, archaeological traces that previously blended into the background. This is sensory perceptual recalibration at work. Attention expands. Filtering relaxes. The brain stops aggressively discarding information and begins letting more of it in. The result feels less like learning something new and more like recovering a skill that had been misplaced somewhere between email notifications and grocery store lighting. The neuroscience. These perceptual changes reflect deeper cognitive adjustments. Reduced cognitive overload. Increased attentional capacity. Greater integration of sensory input. This aligns closely with attention restoration theory. Natural environments engage attention gently through soft fascination, allowing directed attention systems to recover without shutting down entirely. From a neurological standpoint, executive attention demand decreases. Default mode network activity increases. Reflection, creativity, internal narrative. Parasympathetic activation rises. Lower stress. Greater physiological calm. In plain terms, the brain stops sprinting and begins walking at a sustainable pace. Social bonds, formed faster than expected. Something equally notable happens between people. Groups that begin as polite strangers quickly develop strong cohesion, shared identity, a surprising willingness to discuss meaningful topics. Strayer suggests that this reflects a kind of social reset. Remove constant digital mediation and people begin interacting in a more direct, sustained way. This aligns with research by Sherry Turkle, who found that increased digital interaction correlates with reduced empathy. Face-to-face interaction supports emotional depth and self-reflection. In wilderness settings, conversations last longer. Silences feel less awkward. People remember each other's names without checking a phone. A low bar perhaps, but an important one. Measuring the mind in the middle of nowhere. Strayer's work stands out because it moves beyond observation and into physiological measurement in real environments. Research design. Participants are measured after extended time outdoors and compared with urban participants, for example, parking lot settings. Lab-based participants' computer tasks. Measurements include EEG, brain activity, facial muscle activity, indicators of stress and emotional expression. Key findings. Theta wave patterns indicate reduced cognitive strain. Executive systems operate more efficiently. Default mode network activity increases. Parasympathetic system supports relaxation and recovery. The brain, in essence, reallocates its resources. Less effort goes toward filtering and control. More capacity becomes available for reflection and integration. The 3-day effect. After roughly 3 days in a natural environment, a consistent pattern emerges. Observable changes. Heightened sensory awareness. Clear perceptual shifts. reduced stress levels, improved attention, greater emotional regulation, increased mental clarity. These changes are measurable through physiological data reported subjectively by participants repeated across different studies and settings. The timing is particularly interesting. 1 day produces noticeable benefits. 3 days produces a shift that feels structural, rather than temporary. Old observations, new evidence. Long before EEG machines and portable sensors, writers such as Henry David Thoreau, John Muir, Edward Abbey described heightened awareness, deep reflection, transformative wilderness experiences. Modern research now provides measurable support for these observations. What once sounded philosophical now appears in datasets and brain scans. The bridge to awe. These sensory, cognitive, and emotional shifts create the ideal conditions for the next major concept, awe. As attention broadens and internal noise quiets, vastness becomes more perceptible. Perspective begins to shift. The sense of self becomes less central. These are the building blocks of awe experiences, which involve perception of scale or complexity, cognitive restructuring, emotional response that blends curiosity, humility, and connection. Summary and conclusion. Extended time in natural environments produces measurable changes across multiple domains. Cognitive. Increased attentional capacity, reduced cognitive strain, enhanced reflection and creativity. Physiological. Greater parasympathetic activity, reduced stress indicators, efficient brain function patterns. Perceptual. Heightened sensory awareness, broader attention to environmental detail. Social. Stronger group cohesion, increased empathy and connection, deeper interpersonal interaction. Temporal threshold. Around 3 days marks a reliable transition point for these effects. Taken together, these findings support a central idea in environmental psychology. Nature shapes cognition, perception, and social behavior in systematic, measurable ways. And it does so without needing Wi-Fi, notifications, or a reminder to be mindful. End of section. Image attachment large.